Greetings. Welcome to Bridges Christian Church. We're glad you could be with us today, whether physically or digitally. My name is Nathan Lawson. I teach at a church in Cherezi. I also work with an organization called UDO. We support children's ministry in Zimbabwe by writing curriculum, putting on programs, and as any of you who've ever volunteered with Josh or Kathy or Joey know, you will never regret the investment that you make in the next generation. Now, if I were to give a more accurate, though, COVID introduction, I'd have to say that since lockdown, hi, my name is Nathan Lawson, and I'm an Algebra 2, Algebra 1, and elementary math tutor. Right, since lockdown, I've kind of become the default math assistant at our house, and elementary math was okay, Algebra 1 was fine, but as we got into Algebra 2, I am amazed at how much I've forgotten. This is despite the fact that I have a certificate from East Carter High School saying I've completed all these courses, I've fulfilled the math requirements for a high school degree, but looking at it now, it's just all gone. Thank heavens for Khan Academy and the ability to review. And that's even stranger because there's a lot of stuff from high school that I do remember. You want to know about the characters on Friends? You want to know about the 1995-96 UK basketball season, the Untouchables with people like Mark Pope and Tony Delp back when Rick Pitino was still a good guy, right? I can tell you all about it, or that when you have pizza day, you have to have corn on the side. Isn't it funny how like the stuff that we wanted to learn, that we took notes on, that we took tests over, that we studied on purpose, so much of that we forgot. But the lessons that had the greatest impact on your life were not the lessons that you wrote down. It's what you learned on the playground. For better or for worse, right? We picked up those ideas of like how to be a good friend or be careful who you trust, or maybe somewhere along the way, like me, you learned that the three hardest things to say in the English language are I'm sorry, I was wrong, and Worcestershire sauce? How do you say that last one? I'm not sure. But these first two are true, aren't they? We learn how to say we're sorry. Now, I'm just not talking about when you bump into somebody at Walmart and you're like, oh, sorry, excuse me, or sorry, I'm late, guys. I mean when you have to own a mistake, when you have to seek what the Bible calls reconciliation. Then learning to apologize well is critical, right? For your happiness, for keeping your family intact, your marriage intact. Maybe you've been a little cramped together over this COVID season and temperatures have run a little high at the house, and you know how important it is to learn how to apologize. But we never take a class in it. You never got out a number 2 pencil and filled in a Scantron that said, I am certified to reconcile as a human being. You just kind of pick some things up. And like so many things in life, much of what I know about apologizing can be summarized in a John Wayne quote. I can't just give you the quote, though, because unfortunately, there are some deprived individuals out there who've never heard of John Wayne. And this quote just doesn't have the same power unless it's coming from the lips of the Duke himself. So let me play you a clip from a 1949 film. Unfortunately, though, because this is online, I can't play the straight clip. So we'll just play, but we have made a workaround that I assure you is just as good as the original. Check it out.
And for what purpose did you wish to leave the post?
Picnicking, sir.
Picnicking? Picnicking, Miss Dandridge?
You're going to help me on this Valentine's Day video? So we're going to be redoing a scene from a John Wayne movie. We all know John Wayne?
No, sir.
It's no problem. You don't have to have seen it. First thing you got to remember is this is like an old-time movie. All right, guys, so this is an old-time movie, but not that old, right? But we can't be doing the Dwayne Johnson look right here. This is like Clint Eastwood, Western style. So you know what I'm thinking?
No.
Exactly. This is the look we're going for. I think we're ready?
Yes.
All right, let's roll film.
Corporal, what seems to be the issue here?
I've prohibited Mr. Smith from exiting the fort, sir.
Why would Mr. Smith need to exit the fort?
Picnicking.
Picnicking? Picnicking?
I'm sorry, sir.
Stop. Don't apologize, son. It's a sign of weakness. Well, I don't see a reason of stopping Mr. Smith from picnicking on a fine day like this.
Thank you, sir.
But, unfortunately, I would have to protect the young lady from the dangerous environment out there. So I'm going to have to escort back the young lady back to her quarters.
thank you, sir.
Even if you've never seen John Wayne or even heard of him before, you felt the truth of that statement, haven't you? Never apologize. It's a sign of weakness. Right? There's something about apologizing which we know it costs us something when we're seeking to reconcile with others. Right? And there's a lot of things that we might do instead of apologizing when we've messed up. We may say, really, I don't know if I made a mistake. I mean, I wasn't that mad. I didn't yell at the kids that loud, really. I wasn't that late for my wife's dinner. It wasn't really that bad. Or when we know we've made a mistake, there are other ways to deal with it. My older brother, TJ, had gotten a water balloon launcher. That's two giant rubber bands that could throw water balloons, just incredible distance. And he got this idea that he could just put it right up against the house and watch the water explode. And him and his our neighbor, Timmy Yankee, were putting it right up against the house and leaning back as far as they could. Foomp! And they let it go. But it didn't make a giant explosion. Instead, that water balloon went through the siding on the house, into the garage. We heard the pegboard come off the wall and all the tools fall, and there is the hole in the wall, and all the boys freeze for a second. And then they do what we have been doing since the beginning, since the Garden of Eden. When you've messed up, when you've made a mistake, your first impulse is to run and hide. That's exactly what they did. They take off back to their houses and they say, "This looks like trouble, man, you're on your own." And they disappear. TJ goes into his room and hides. Now, you may be not hiding physically like you did when you were younger, but there are plenty of ways to hide. Just when we offend somebody at church, we just disappear for a little while, wait for 6 months to go by and hope it's blown over. Right? We find these moments where we feel this desire to hide. Well, we're going to be looking today at a story in the Bible that teaches us about reconciliation, about what it means to ask for forgiveness from God and about God's grace, but also to ask forgiveness from family when we've really messed up. The story comes from the Gospel of Luke. It's a story Jesus tells. You're probably familiar with it, called the prodigal son. The word prodigal is a weird word. Like, I've never heard it anywhere else except for in this story. It's not even a Bible word. Like, there's nowhere in the Psalms that uses the word prodigal. It's just used to describe this story. My dad once joked that the story might be better titled The Story of the Jerk Kid Brother. And that seems to be pretty accurate because this son goes to his dad right as he's graduating high school and says, "Look, Dad, I have put in my time. I'm sick of this small town. I am ready to take off. Give me my share of the inheritance. Empty your 501k. Give me part of your mortgage. I am ready to get out of this town." And graciously, the father allows the son to go. And so the son takes off. And the text is going to tell us this, that the younger son got all that he possibly could, and he set off for the distant country. Now, the distant country is not very specific. If you're in Russell, the distant country could be the University of Kentucky. The distant country could be San Francisco. The point is the same, that it is far from home and from wisdom and the protection of those who love you, and surrounded by people who are probably wanting his money. He squanders all of his wealth in wild living. And he's probably thinking at that point, I could probably just get a job, but unfortunately, right as he runs out of money, famine hits the land. Just like COVID-19, right? The economy suddenly goes into the ground and no jobs are able to be had, and there's nobody to give him extra bread. Anybody that might want to help him doesn't have any extra food to spare. And so this son, we'll call him Mike. Mike can't find a job. The only job he can get doesn't even pay enough to give him a sandwich. Text says that he's feeding pigs. Now, we don't know how long Mike allows the situation to stay there. Does he wait a few days to call home? A few weeks? Maybe some months? For those of you who've been in family situations where people have been hurt, you know it can go years. There is no time limit on that kind of hurt. But at some point, he comes to his senses, and two remarkable things are going to happen in this text that I want us to look at. You're probably going to remember the second one, but I don't want us to miss out on the first one because it's really pretty remarkable. Mike, the son, he's deciding things are bad. I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to go home. But here's what he says. He says, "I will set out and go back to my father's house. And I'm going to say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.'" Now that's remarkable. I mean, you might say to yourself that, well, of course, Mike apologizes. I mean, what other choice does he have? And the truth is, he has a lot of other choices. You see, there's a way that Mike could go home and say sorry and it not sound like this, because in this story, Mike is saying, I was at fault. I did evil in God's eyes, but I also did evil to you. He's saying that, look, I'm not asking to be called your son. I don't deserve that. What Mike says in here is what reconciliation, what a genuine apology is meant to look like. And maybe you grew up in a household where this is obvious for you, but you might have grown up in a household where you never saw a lot of adults apologize to you. You got older and you saw kids apologize, but no adult ever pulled you aside and said, what I did wasn't right, and I'm sorry. And you grew up thinking that real men don't say sorry. You know, a real woman doesn't apologize or people will take advantage of them. I don't know. But if this is the case for you, let us look today at what Mike could have said. You see, Mike could have said what a lot of us learned to say when we were younger. If I got in a fight with my older brother, we would kind of be pulled in and made to face each other, and my dad would say, Nathan, tell TJ you're sorry. And so I would sit there with my teeth gritted and my arms crossed and say, sorry, I love you. Like, we just push it out, but everything about us doesn't want to say it. We know we don't mean it, but our parents are trying to help us learn to take responsibility for our actions. You see, there's a lot of ways that you can say sorry and say not, and the other person is going to hear not sorry. It's a great tag on Twitter if you've ever seen it, sorry, not sorry, usually used as a joke when we're going to say something that some people might disagree with to be funny, like, of course, Zion Williamson. I mean, he might have been the number one NBA draft pick, but he didn't even make it to the Final Four because he picked the wrong team. Sorry, not sorry. Right? In that case, it's meant to be funny, but if you've ever been on the side of an apology where someone's saying sorry, but what you're hearing in the way they're saying it is not sorry. Or it's possible that you're kind of confused because you've been going to people that you've made mistakes on and you keep saying sorry, but it doesn't seem to make anything better. It seems to almost make people more angry. It's possible that you're saying sorry, but they're hearing not sorry. So let's look at just a couple things. One of the things Mike could have said is he could have gone home and said, Father, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but if you hadn't been so harsh growing up, I never would have run away in the first place. If my older brother didn't always get the attention, I wouldn't be forced to run away and try to get recognition somewhere else. You see, the first thing to be on the lookout for in your apology, if you're looking for reconciliation, is if your apology is taking a U-turn. I'm sorry that you got offended. I'm sorry that you didn't understand me. I'm sorry that you got angry. I'm sorry that if your apology suddenly has a you in it, you might be saying sorry, but the person on the other side of that conversation is very aware where you think the fault lies, and it's not with the person saying sorry. The other person in this conversation is hearing you say, I am not sorry because this is your fault. You see, I'm sorry that this happened, but you guys were misbehaving. I'm sorry I yelled, but you know how angry I get when we say sorry like that, it is not an apology. It's just an explanation. And the Bible in this story teaches us the power not of an explanation, but of seeking reconciliation so you can finally experience healing and growth. If your sorry has been holding on to a U-turn, then you may be missing out on one of the greatest experiences of grace that God had for you in your life, but that's not the only way. See, what Mike could have said is he could have had a wooden apology. I would apologize, Mike could say, but my father never called once while I was in the far country. Didn't even write a letter. Nobody sent a messenger to me. Probably doesn't even care about me. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but he's not the best dad either, Takes two to tango. I would apologize if she admits that she's wrong. I would apologize if he would just acknowledge how hard I work. I would apologize if my boss would just for once admit that his idea was wrong. When we have a would in apology, well, at that point, our apology is just being used as leverage to get somebody else to do what we want. We are not really seeking to acknowledge the hurt that we cause. We are just saying, I will give you a little bit of what you want if you admit that I was right the whole time. And we might be saying sorry, but what the other side is hearing is not sorry. There's one more thing to be on the lookout, and this one perhaps is the one that I see the most often, and that is when our sorry has a sorry but I'm sorry, but, the traffic was terrible. I'm sorry, but if you knew what I was going through in my life right now, I'm sorry. Can you just hear Mike saying as he goes home, I'm sorry, but if it hadn't been for this famine, my business would have taken off. I mean, I may have not done everything right, but, the situation made it difficult, or, but I had a bad employee, or I had an unfair break, or my high school wasn't that great. I'm sorry, but, this is just the way I am. And when sorry has a but at the end of it, it is no longer an apology. It's just an explanation on why you have to forgive me. I'm expecting you to forgive me. You don't know what I'm going through right now. You see, that's not sorry. Because if we look at what the Son says, look, I sinned against God and against you. The Son is acknowledging that what I did was not right. And it didn't just hurt God. I can't just pray about it at the invitation time at Bridges and ask for forgiveness, because God is not the only party at play here. I have to go to you and say, what I did hurt you. What I did was mean. And the thing about it is I'm not asking you, in fact, it's not even healthy to apologize for things you didn't cause. It's not your fault that she left, but you can take responsibility for shouting as she did. It's not your fault that they just took off to university and never called, but you can say sorry that you didn't call either. You see, when we own to saying, the Son says, I sinned against, not about the famine, it's not about my position in the family, it's not about an unfortunate set of circumstances. I sinned against God. I hurt you. I let you down. And then the Son says something that I think is even more remarkable if you pay attention to it. He says, I'm not worthy to be called your son. That means in this story, the Son is not asking to be reinstated. He's not even implying it. I mean, what a remarkable situation. The Son is saying, look, I'm saying I'm sorry, but I recognize that you don't have to forgive me. Maybe not ever, but certainly not right now. You see, when we're genuinely seeking reconciliation, when we've messed up, we don't demand that the other side offer forgiveness. We're not saying on the other side, well, I'm sorry. I don't know if they're going to get over it or not. You see, the Son in this story says, look, I understand that what I've done is a big deal. And this may take a while and maybe never for you to include me back in the circle. But I'm just asking for enough help to get something to eat. Do you hear how when the Son says he's sorry, he is not demanding to be forgiven? But that's when the remarkable part of this story takes place, because what the Father does next, which we all feel inside, that this is the essence of what love is. If Valentine's Day was meant to be about anything, it was meant to be what we see in this next scene, the kind of love that does this. So when Mike got up and went to his father, while Mike was still a long way off, his father was filled with compassion. Notice this word. He ran to his son. He run. I can tell you, it's culturally inappropriate in those days for men to run. But let's be honest, it's culturally inappropriate now for men to run. When's the last time you were in a parking lot at Walmart and you saw some 50-year-old guy taking off to his car to get a good deal? It doesn't happen. People do not run. But this guy, even in that culture, it's embarrassing, but he doesn't care. He runs to his son. He's not waiting around. He's been waiting for the son to come home. And it says he throws his arm around him. You can just imagine squeezing for everything he's working, and he's kissing him on the cheek, and he cuts his son off. His son doesn't even get through the whole speech. His son says, Father, I've sinned against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. And he's going to go into that part about being a hired servant, but his father just cuts him off and says, bring a ring, kill the fattened calf. We're throwing a party. This son of mine is lost, but now he's found. Before you can even ask for it, the father says, you were always my son. That'll never change. You see, the essence of what love is not love means never having to say you're sorry. Love means that our relationship is worth repairing. Love means it is worth it to put things back the way that God intended. It is worth it to go through a process that may be humiliating at the time, but we understand that on the other side of it is grace. Because think what would have happened if Mike would have came home and offered some excuses and said, I just need something to eat. His father would have gave him something to eat, but in the back of his head, Mike would have been sitting there the whole time wondering, boy, I wonder if he found out what really happened, what he'd think about me. You see, the sad part of this story is you know that Mike could have experienced forgiveness at any point, but he doesn't experience it until he goes and asks for reconciliation, and suddenly he finds that there is grace and love in abundance. And I wonder, how many of you, if you wanted to affirm one thing this Valentine's Day with your family, it's to go to your kids and say, you can apologize for anything and know that you will have loving arms wrapped around you because there is nothing that you could do that would make you not my son, not my daughter. I will always love you, even when you make a mistake. And how that kind of love gives us the freedom to be honest when we say we're sorry, to say what I did wasn't right. When I yelled at the kids this week, it was not right. And I'm not just going to say it as a joke in small group. I'm going to go to my kids and say, when you saw me get angry, it was because of the financial stress of what I'm going through right now. I just want you to know that was wrong. Anger should never get the best of you. And what if the example that I set for you is not right? And there's no excuse for it. I'm going to try better. And when your kids see you model that as a child, think about how it will impact their marriage, their friendships, their future jobs, the people that they associate with when they learn that the Christian life is about continuous reconciliation. But of course, I know some of you are saying, yeah, that's true in some cases. But you know, the hurt that we went through, that was a long time ago. A lot of water under the bridge. I was a chaplain at Greenville Memorial Hospital. And I remember talking with this one guy who was getting cancer treatment and saying, you know, this is going to be a process. Don't you have any children that could be here with you? And this guy ends up saying, well, no, they're pretty far away. They're over in Spartanburg. And now, for those of you that don't know, Spartanburg is about as far from Greenville as Grayson is from Ashland. It's not really that far. He says, yeah, well, truth be told, I wasn't much of a dad. I wasn't around a lot. I was in trucking, and I just wasn't there for him. I said, well, you could still reach out. He says, no, I think it's kind of too late for me. And the wonderful thing about this story, what it tells us, is it's not too late. That although you can't change the past, if you seek out in reconciliation, no matter how long you've waited, you can change the opportunities in the future. Let me share with you a testimony from one of our guys at Udo.
Hi everybody, my name is Tadiwa. I am the amazing voice that you hear on our YouTube song. So, I like working with kids. I love kids. We get to dance, we get to have fun. When I was growing up, my dad wasn't as involved in my life. So when I was 12 years old, my mom died. And this put me and my little brother in a tight position where I had to learn how to cook, I had to learn how to clean the house and not get behind in my schoolwork as well. My dad started chasing after younger women. In a few months' time, he got a teenage girl pregnant, and after she gave birth, she just decided she couldn't take care of the child anymore. So one day she reached up at our house and left the child in my arms. This was just way too much. I couldn't take it. So I left to go and stay with my aunt. And as I was in Jersey, I said I got a job at Udo. I started working with Nathan and Tessa. I could send to my little brother so that he could finish school well. And I would help my dad here and there when I could. I started saving money. After a year, I've decided to visit my grandparents, and my dad had been staying with them since he had been having problems here and there. So this was just awkward for me and my dad because we hadn't been talking much, and I stayed there for a few days, and after I was about to leave, he called me by the side and he said, I've been listening to your songs that you are doing in Jersey. And I just want to tell you that each time I hear you sing, just makes me weep, makes me cry, because you remind me so much of your mom. And then this was just a shocker. I didn't know what to say. I just kept quiet. And after a pause, he said, I know I haven't been a good example, but I'm proud of the person that you are now. Was just heaven hearing these words. I know that doesn't sound as much, but in our culture, that was his way of saying, I'm sorry, I wasn't a great father, but you make me proud. So 5 months later, I received news that my dad had died. To all the fathers out there that feel like it's too late to apologize, I just want to tell you that between those 5 months that I had, I got to respect my dad more. Our relationship was now closer. Though that time that my dad pulled me by the side and called me, he said he was sorry in his own way, but what I really felt like he was saying in my heart was that what we have is worth fixing. So as for you, it's not too late to pick up the phone and call and apologize. Thank you.
I don't know why Tadiwa's dad waited until those last moments. Maybe he felt sickness in him. I don't know why he let things get so bad. But I can tell you that those last 5 months had life-saving conversations for Tadiwa that will impact how Tadiwa is a father as he get older. And look, his dad may not have been perfect, but he recognized that part of what we need to pass on to the next generation is not hurts and undealt with issues. It's an example that says those who are above us show what it means to offer reconciliation to someone else, to not offer the sorry not sorries, but to show what it looks like to ask for forgiveness from somebody else. We're going to be going into a time of communion right now. They're individual little cups wherever you are. If you've picked them up, I encourage you to have them with your family at home. It reminds me, my son, sometimes when they get a splinter, they try to put a Band-Aid on it and cover it up to hide it. But I'll see them limping and, what's wrong? Oh, nothing. It's good. It's good. And you say, no, let me have a look at it. And you take the shoe off and you can see they've already put a Band-Aid on it trying to make it better. But the thing about splinters are, and the reason they don't want to show it to me is they know that to get a splinter out hurts. You have to take a needle or tweezers and you're poking right where it's sore, the sorest spot, and you just keep poking a needle in there. But you who are older know that if you don't take it out, it doesn't get better. Isn't one of those things you can put a Band-Aid on and it makes things all right. In fact, covering it up just kind of makes it worse. And it's for that reason that I think communion is at the center of every week of our worship, so that we remember time and again to go to those around us and say, because of grace, I'm going to ask for forgiveness. Because of grace, it's okay for you to tell me that you've let me down sometime this week. Because of grace, I can be honest with you and ask for reconciliation. Because the sorries that you ask this week can be the beginning of some incredible healings, and they can be the moments where, like the Son, you can feel the Father's arms wrapped around you, squeezing you where you can't breathe, putting a kiss on your cheek and saying, I know, it's okay. You're still my son. You're still my daughter, and I'll always love you.